Hello friends, welcome back to TechnoGeek SFTC. So in today's video, we are going to talk about approval process in Salesforce. So what approval process is? Approval processes, not only in Salesforce but in general, are basically some automated processes where you add certain additional users or group to validate or make changes in your data before you are marking the business process as complete. So let's take an example to understand this. Okay, so whenever basically you go to any bank or somewhere to take a loan, okay, so when you let's say you need a loan of $100,000, okay, and when you talk to the manager of that branch, manager tells that I have only certain capacity or certain capacity to approve, let's say $50,000 only. And more than that, I need to take approval from my seniors. You might have heard this statements many times. Okay. So this is where your approval process comes in, where let's say there are certain data, or let's say in terms of our bank example, let's say since the amount is more than the capacity of the current branch manager, that's why he is involving his seniors, his or her seniors, to do the validation and do the approvals. Okay. Similarly, in Salesforce as well, we have this process called approval process where you can involve some other users to validate your data or to make the changes in your data if required, so that the business process can be marked as complete. Okay. So I hope you got an idea on what the approval process are basically. So let's see how we create the approval process basically in the Salesforce. Okay. So for that, so let's take an example that let's say you are creating an opportunity, okay, and the total amount of and let's say you are an owner of the opportunity, okay. But if you're creating any opportunity which is having total amount more than 10,000, then you need your manager's approval on that particular record so that you can close the opportunity as closed one, okay. So let's take this in scenario. Now, how we can we create an approval process for this? So for this, you can come to the quick setup, and then in quick find you can search for approval process. So in the process automation section, you will get something called approval process. Now, here, first thing you need to do is you need to select the object on which you want to create the approval process. So in our case, let's say it is opportunity. So we'll select the opportunity. Okay. Now, there are two ways of basically creating a approval process in Salesforce. One is using the Jumpstart wizard where you can define the basic steps of your approval process. And then there's a standard setup wizard where you are defining an in detail approval process for opportunity. So we will go with the you standard setup wizard. First thing you need to give the process name. I'll give opportunity amount process. Okay, and then we'll click on next. Now, next is you need to select what is the criteria so that the record will enter into this particular approval process. So in our case, let's say if the total amount is more than 10,000, right? In that case, we want to fire this approval process on that particular opportunity record. So you have two types here basically. Either you can do a normal criteria are met, or you can define your own formulas for this. Okay. In our case, since it is a very straightforward criteria, so we can use criteria are met. And I'll select opportunity amount is greater than, let's say I'll give 10,000, or let's say I'll give just 1,000. Okay. Similarly, you can provide multiple criterias here, and then again you have the filter logic. So by default, all these criterias will be in AND condition, but if you want to change the filter logic, and if let's say you want to give some customized logic like 1 or 2 and 3, something like that, then in that cases you can use add filter logic. You can just click on it and you can provide the logic here. Okay. So now we'll go to next. We'll click on next. Okay. So now your third step is the approval field or record editability properties. Okay, here first you need to select the user, or basically who will be determining the next approver. Okay, so here when you're seeing the next automated approver determined by, so basically you can define that as soon as, let's say, the record is hitting the criteria to enter the approval process, automatically it will be assigned to some approver. Okay, based on your role, or not role specifically, but based on certain user lookup fields. Okay, so for example, you can see that you can use standard user field called manager, or if you have any custom user field on opportunity, that also you can use. So here we will select as manager. Okay, so as soon as you will select manager, it will automatically pick up the manager of the current user and it will add him or her as a approver in that particular record. And then next is you are defining who can do the editing of the record once it is in approval process. Okay, so here you can select either admins can do it, or the admins and current approvers. So in our case, I will just keep it as admins, and we'll go to next. Here you can define the templates. Let's say if you have some custom email templates to notify the approvers that yes, you have been assigned as an approver for this record or something like that. If you want to do so, you can select the templates here. Okay. Now we can go to next step. Since we don't have any templates, so I'll just go to next step. And then next is the fields which you want to show to the user once he or she is on the approval page of the record. So once user will come and see the approval page, once you approver will basically go to approval page to approve or reject the record. Here you can define what all fields you want to showcase to them. Okay, so I'll just add amount as well here. Here is a small example which Salesforce has provided, so to see how it will look like. Okay, so you can see that submitted amount, status. So these fields, when approver will try to approve or reject the record, then these fields will be shown on the page where user basically do the approval or rejection. Okay, so I hope you got this idea. Next is, so yeah, so we have selected amount, and then we will go to next steps. Now, here the thing is, who can submit the approval process? Who can submit in the approval process? Okay, so who will be the submitter basically? So let's say I am working on an opportunity where I feel that uh, the amount can go more than thousand, okay, $1,000. So either I can submit the record for approval to my higher higher managers, or I can allow someone else as well to submit the record on behalf of me. Okay, so here if you see, you have an option that who all can submit. Okay, either you are owner's opportunity owner can do it, or the creator. Sometimes the creator and the owner can be different, right? So the creator can also submit. So in our case, we'll just keep it as opportunity owner. You have other options as well, like public groups, you have roles, you have any specific user. If you want to define that also, you can do it. So in our case, we'll keep it as owner, and the opportunity owner will submit for the approval process. Okay. And then there is one more setting called allow submitter to recall the approval process. So uh, let's say there is a user who is working on opportunity. He sees that okay, the amount is going to $5,000, so I need to submit for approval. But as soon as he submits for the approval, he feels that okay, I haven't filled the description, so manager will not be knowing what this opportunity is all about. So he wants to recall that particular approval process so that he can make the changes. Okay, so this is one of the option. Usually admins can do the recall, or the approvers can do the recall, but here you are giving another option that uh, the submitter can also do the recall. Okay, so this is also one option. If you want, you can select this, and next you will click on save. So now, as soon as you click on save, you will be landed to something like this. This is a detailed page of your approval process where you can just cross verify like whatever the initial submitter you have selected, the record editability, entry criteria, and all other stuff. You can Just have a look here. Now, next step is we need to define the steps. Okay, so what will be the approval steps? So before defining the approval steps, so there are a couple of sections. First section is initial submission action. So initial submission action is basically, let's say, as soon as you click on submit for approval, or let's say by from process builder or somewhere, if it is getting submitted to approval process, then what all action needs to be performed. By default, you will be having an action to lock the record, so that as soon as the record is in approval process, record will get locked and no one else can edit it. You have other actions as well, like you can fire an email if you want, you can do an field update, okay, or if you want, you can do some outbound messages, you can do a task creation. So usually, whatever the workflow actions we have, those actions you will find here, and you can add to your initial submission action. So this is basically as soon as you submit it. Next is your approval steps. Okay, so here basically you will be defining who all approvers are. Okay, who all are your approvers. So we will define, let's say, approver one, and then we'll click on next. Okay, now you have basically a criteria step here that let's say if you want for example, okay, so let's say on opportunity you have some user called approve, some lookup field to user called approver. Okay, so if you want to define certain criteria, okay, so that let's say if one particular field on opportunity is not equal to null, okay, then only come to this process, then only come to this step basically. So in approval steps, basically you have multiple steps, okay, where you're defining the multiple levels of approval required. So let's say on step one, you want to see that if the approver one lookup field is available, then only go to step one, otherwise just simply approve the record. Okay, approve that particular step, I would say, not the complete record, that particular step. Okay, so you can select those types of criteria here, or you can select another option where all record has to go through this particular step and the approver needs to approve or reject basically. Okay, so here I have selected like all records should enter this step, and then we'll click on next. Now you have multiple options here. Either submitter can manually select who will be his or her next approver, or as we have selected in our first step, that the submitter's manager can select manually who will be the approver. Okay, or you can automatically assign an approver to that particular record. Okay, here if you're selecting the third option, then you have an option called user. So you can select any specific user to approve or reject, or you can select a related user. Related user means any field on the record, or let's say we are talking about opportunity. So any field on the opportunity which is pointing to user via lookup or master detail, anything. So those fields you can specify here. Okay, so basically this will become kind of dynamic in nature, that automatically it will pick up the value from record and it will make that particular user as an approver. Okay, so this is what related users do. Similarly, you can use a partner user, you can use a customer portal user for as an approver. In our case, I'll just use it as a user, and I'll just select myself as user, as an approver. Okay, now next is you have, so here if you want to add multiple approvers in the same step, you can click on add row and then you can just keep on selecting the users. Okay, now next is your basically the way of doing this, way of making this particular steps is approved or reject. So approved basically. Okay, so let's say you have multiple users in the same step, like I have added one more user here. So currently in this step, I have two users. Okay, now you have an option that if any one of them comes and approves the record, then this step will be marked as approved. Okay, or if you want both the approvers to come and uh, to come and mark this particular step as approved, then you can select the next one. Like you require unanimous approval from all the selected approvers. Okay. So here it's like, or you can just see in terms of uh, simple way is like your first option is an or condition where approver 1 or approver 2 can mark it as approved. Your second is your and condition where approver 1 and approver 2 has to approve this particular step. Okay. So this is the use of this is the use when you have multiple approvers. Okay. And then we can click on save. So as soon as you save it, you can see that in the approval steps, now you have one step already added here. Okay. Where you have approver 1, and who is the assigned user? Assigned user is like look, I have assigned to myself. Okay. Similarly, you can add multiple approval steps here. Okay. So I'll just add one more approval step. This also I'll keep it as myself only. If you see, there is something called reject action. Okay. So basically you can define what should be the behavior of the rejection. Let's say if you have multiple steps in the approval process. Okay. Let's say you have two-step approval process. Then in that case, what happens if step 1 is approving it, but step 2 is rejecting it? So that in that way, you can define that what will be the reject behavior. Okay. That let's say if all the approvers are making it as reject, then the record will mark as rejected. Okay. Or if any one approver is marking it as reject, then it will get rejected. That is what your second option is. Okay. So this is what you have in the reject behavior. I'll just click on save. Okay. So now if you can see, I have here two steps basically. Okay. One is your approver 1 and another one is your approver 2. So this is a two-step approval process. Okay. Here, now if you click on show action, okay. So once you click on show action, okay, here now you can define that what should happen. So let's say in my step 1 where I am the approver, okay. Now let's say what should happen if I approve the record, okay. As soon as I approve the record, if you want any email to fire, or if you want to do any field update, or if you want to do any kind of single line integration, what we call it as outbound message, okay, or if you want to create a task, so those types of actions you can do here under the approval action. So as soon as approver 1 will approve the record, this action will get fired. Similarly, you have something called rejection action. So as soon as the approver is doing a rejection, then what should happen? So again, you have a similar kind of options available where you can fire email alert, you can do field updates and creation of task and outbound message. Okay. So these will come under actions. So if you want to add any action, you can just click on show actions and then you can add your actions here. Okay. And then you have something called final approval action. So what final approval action means, that as soon as your step 1 is approving it and step 2 is approving it. Okay. This means that the whole record got approved. Your complete approval process is marked as approved. Then in that case, what action you want to perform? So there are certain default action which is already being added. Okay. So here you have something called uh, record locking. Okay. Where as soon as the approval is done, okay, final approval is done, you are locking the whole record. Okay. If you want, you can edit it. Okay. Like you can make the record as unlock, that as soon as the approval process is done, the whole record will get unlocked. Okay. Similarly, you have a final rejection action. Okay. So final rejection action is that as soon as any user is rejecting the record, or any approver is rejecting the record, or at any particular step, like let's say we have step one, we have step two. So in at any particular step, if it is rejecting, which in turn is making the whole approval process as reject, then what action you want to perform. Okay, so that is called your final rejection action, that the complete approval process is marked as rejected. Okay, same here, you are getting the similar options again, like you can do an email alert, field updates, task, outbound message. So these are uh, some of the actions which you can do. Okay, there is one action already added by default, which is record unlocking, where your record will become unlocked. Okay, and then you have something called recall action. So if you remember, when we were discussing in our when we were creating the approval process, there we had an option that the submitter can recall the approval process, right? So as soon as the recall is happening, what should or what action needs to be performed, that you can define in recall actions. Okay, so I hope you got an idea of what these approval processes and all these things are. Okay, now uh, we have done everything. Now next, the final thing is we need to activate it. Okay, so as soon as I'm clicking on activate, you can see that this active checkbox has been marked as true. Okay, so now let's try to work on some record to see how this approval process is going to work. So I have a demo user here. Okay, I'll just log in with this demo user, and I'll make some changes in the approval in the opportunity record. So let's say I'll go to opportunities, and I have, let's say, one opportunity I have, where if we see on the details amount. Okay, so here the amount is very high already. Okay, so you will be seeing an option called submit for approval. Okay, so if you don't see this in your quick actions, you can just go to page layouts and add this button. Okay, that is submit for approval. Now here, so there are multiple ways of doing this. Either you can do it manually, like how I'm currently doing, or you can automate it by using the process builder or by using the lightning flows. I'll show you that as well, how you can automate it. Okay, so currently, let's say I'm just clicking on submit for approval, and I'll just click on submit. Okay, so now if you see, opportunity has been submitted for approval. Okay, and then in the history, if you see, I have got something like this, approval one. So this is my steps what we have defined. Okay, that first it has gone to approver one. Okay, now I'll just take this URL and I'll go to the particular record. Yeah. So we have something called approval history. Okay. So let's say this basically tells you that, who it will basically give you the complete history of the approval process, which this record has been through. Okay. So if you don't see this, you can again add this from the related list. You can go to page layout and you can just drag and drop in your related list. Okay. Now, uh, if you see, I have I'm getting this option since I'm an approver. Okay, so in the approval history, I'll be getting four options basically. Okay, first is approve, second is reject, third is reassign, and fourth is recall. Okay, so as an approver, I can recall this particular record, I can approve it, reject it, or reassign it. Okay, now one more thing I want to show. As soon as you click on this step, okay, this is basically your approval step record detail page, if you see. Okay, here if you remember, we had added couple of fields when we were creating the approval process to show to approvers, right? And those fields you can see that it is visible here. Like we had amount, we had opportunity name, we had the opportunity owner name, and then there is another section called submitter content. It will give you an idea of who is the submitter. Okay. Now, as soon as I click on approve, I just click on approve. You can give comment, you can remove the comment, that's fine. Okay. Now, if I go to approval history, okay. So now if you see, my step 2 has come into picture. After my step 1 has done the approval, step 2 has come into picture. Okay. Where again, I can just approve this particular record. Okay. And so currently what happened? My step 1 got approved. The whole record is not approved, only the step 1 is approved. Now, as soon as I'll approve from the step 2, that is my approver 2, okay, so I can just click on this, okay. So as soon as I done the approval on this, okay, so as soon as we approve now, if you see, you don't have any further approval required on this. Under the approval history, you can see that no further approvals are required, okay. And this whole particular record got approved, okay. So this is basically now your approval process has been approved. I mean, basically the complete approval process on this record has been approved, okay. So this is what approval process do, where you can define the number of steps basically to define that, or let's say you have different level of users who will be doing the approval, so you can define all those things in Salesforce, okay. Here we had seen how you can do the submission in by manually. Basically, let's say if you're a record owner, you can do the submission manually. But let's say if I want to automate this as well, then in that case, you can come to process builder. Okay, I'll just create a process builder to show how we can do the submission. So here you can select the option for a record changes, and then you can select the object as opportunity, and I'll just click on save. I'll add the criteria, okay, that I'll just give here as amount greater than 1000. Okay, I'll just click on save. Now in the action, once you go to action, you have something called submit for approval. You can select this, okay. You can give any name, basically. Let's say app. I just given a random name. Now you have option that either you can do a default approval process. Default approval process means what it will do is it will scan all the approval processes which has been defined on the opportunity, and it will find if any particular approval process is there which is meeting the record criteria, okay. And it will submit the record automatically to that particular approval process, okay. Let's say you have approval process 1 2 3 4 defined on opportunity, okay. Let's say one is working on amount greater than 1000, another is working on amount greater than 500, or third one is working on status as closed one. So system will define that which particular approval process is meeting the criteria of the record opportunity record which user has created or updated, and it will submit to either approval process 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so this is for defined a default approval process 2. But let's say if you know that which approval process basically you want to submit to, then in that case you can select a specific approval process, and then you can select the approval process on it. Okay, and then you have an option that who will be the submitter, like you current user, the logged in user is the submitter, or any other user, any particular user will be submitter, or any user field. So basically you can define the submitter of that particular record on the approval process. So this is how you do from the approval process. Sorry, from the process builder. This is a way of automating from the process builder. Similarly, you can do it from flows as well. So again, if I go to flows, I can just create a, sorry, not this one. I can just use an option called new flow. And here I will select an option of record triggered flow. Okay. And I will select opportunity, and then I have an option for record created and updated, and I'll just click on done. Now, here if you see, you have something called actions. Okay, so if you click on actions, you can search for an action called, you can just search something like submit for approval, and you will get an action called submit for approval. Here you can select the record ID, that is your current record ID. Next will be the approval process. If you know the approval process name, you can define that approval process name. Okay, so you can select approval process name here, and then if you want, you can define like who will be the next approver ID. If you want to skip the entry criteria, that also you can do. Submission, if you want to do any comment, any submission comment, so that also you can do from here, or who will be your submitter, so that also you can select. Also, there are certain advanced option. So let's say after submission, if you want to get the approval process instance ID, those things you can take and you can store in your lightning flows. So this action basically, yeah. So this action basically you can use to submit for approval process from your lightning flow as well. So this is also a way of doing the automation of submission of for the approval process. So I hope you got an idea of what approval processes are, what are its capabilities, and there is also one more way. I forgot to mention that. So you can do it from the Apex as well. So you you have certain specific syntax where you define the approval process name, and then it automatically submits to that particular approval process from Apex as well. So I hope you like this video, you found this interesting, and see you soon. We'll be coming up with more videos and more knowledge sharing in Salesforce. So be on this channel, and thanks for your time. Thank you.